Hello and welcome to the Kyiv Post podcast with me, Rahemtulla. Today's program will be discussing same-sex couples in Ukraine and the disappearance, or not, of the country's infamous Berkut riot police. But first, we turn to the situation with garbage in the western Ukrainian city of Lviv. For months, trash has been piling up there after its only landfill site shut down in 2016. In recent days, the situation has improved, but issues remain. Our correspondent, Maria Kapinos, has been looking into this story, and she joins me now. First, just set the scene for us. What's been going on in Lviv, and why has there been this build-up with garbage?
So, my conversation with locals brought me to one simple conclusion. There are two parts of Lviv. One for tourists, and another one is like a simple neighborhood, where people just live. So this part for tourists is always shiny, always very bright. There are no garbage there at all. But when you're walking down the street to those areas, like in the outskirts, you see piles of trash everywhere. You see trash cans overfilled, and a lot of bags of trash nearby. And people are really scared because it stinks. And it looks not very good, and it spreads infection, although not so many people talk about that. It's really dangerous to residents' health.
And why do you think this is all happening? Now, officially, this is because Lviv had a landfill site, it was closed, and they've had trouble distributing their waste to other sites, because those sites say that they have no space. But there's been a lot of suggestions that this is actually very political, and that President Petro Poroshenko has told these other landfill sites not to help Lviv, because Poroshenko wants to punish Andriy Sadovyi, the mayor of Lviv, and he's also a potential presidential rival to Poroshenko. Do you think, is there any truth in these suggestions?
Okay, let's start with the thing we know for sure. On May 30, Ryblytsk landfill shut down. That's the day the problem starts, we're talking about that. Official thing, this landfill had to be shut down in 2007, so 10 years ago. Can we blame Sadovyi that he didn't do that? Yes, we can. Although when I talked to his deputy, he explained to me, Andriy Moskalenko, he explained that they've been trying to build a new recycling factory since 2008, and they have been cooperating with European Investment Bank since 2013. But still, we have an obvious thing. The landfill was not shut down, yes? At some point, Kyiv officials have a right to blame Sadovyi, but it's not only his problem. If you're talking about the landfills around Ukraine, they are all at terrible condition. So it's a national problem, To blame only Sadovyi is not completely right. And that's another part of the problem, that Poroshenko, he needed a leverage to influence Sadovyi. And I think that it's about him being his rival at president's race. It's more about his party, Samesex, which has 26 seats in parliament, and they are very strictly being negative about Poroshenko's political views, and so Poroshenko needs to influence Sadovyi.
And what happens now? Because you do write that the garbage disposal in Lviv has been taken out of the hands of the city authorities. It's moved up to the oblast authorities. And the oblast authorities are subordinate to central authorities in Kyiv. And that seems to have improved the situation slightly. Is this the end of the trash troubles in Lviv? Or is it, as you say, is it just going to be a source of leverage for Poroshenko?
I've talked to Oleg Sinyutka. He's the head of the Oblast administration. Technically, Oleg Sinyutka is responsible for this problem now. But I have a feeling that he has a few aces in the hole. Why? Because he claims he's been capable to fix the problem, and at some point he did it. He fixed the problem, by talking to people in places, by going to all that landfills, around Ukraine, and after conversations with him, after him explaining why this local activists should accept live trash, they agreed to do so. And he seems very confident. At this point, I don't see the reason why he should be that confident, because the problem remains tense. And Poroshenko can press the same button and Lviv will be blocked, for a while. And another thing is, no matter what we say, there is this perception that Sadowy and only Sadowy has to fix the problem. And for people around Ukraine, they still have no idea who Sinyutka is, that he has to handle this situation. For them, garbage problem equals Andrei Sadowy, Lviv mayor. So if something pops up, everyone would blame Sadowy, and I believe Poroshenko knows it very well.
Well, Maria, it sounds like a problem as much political as it is environmental. We never know. It may not be the end of the story, but for us, that's where we'll have to leave it today. Thank you very much for joining us.
It was nice talking to you.
That was Maria Kapanos on problems with garbage disposal in Lviv. Now we turn to the question of same-sex couples who are, in many parts of the world, increasingly part of the mainstream. However, in Ukraine, they still remain, for the most part, socially unacceptable, and they certainly don't have the right to marry. Anna Yakutenko, our correspondent here at the Kyiv Post, has been looking into what it means to be part of a same-sex couple in Ukraine today. Anna, you interviewed one couple for your article, two women who have two children through artificial insemination. What did they tell you about their family life, and do they find it risky to be open about who they are?
They have a quite ordinary family life. I mean, they go out with their children. On the same day when we had an interview later, they went on Atlas Weekend Music Festival. So they basically have just a life of ordinary couple. But I think it's rather a good example, and not every same-sex couple can boast having the same life, because those women told me that they never actually faced some aggression towards them. But I think it's not very true for each Ukrainian gay couple, and especially the one with children. So they are quite open about their homosexuality, and they even allow their children to openly speak about it. So they have a 5-year-old daughter, Varya, and she's always talking about her family, which includes up to 40 people and their dogs. But I think that they are still fearing that something bad could happen to their children. And in our newspaper, they refuse to pose with open faces because of that.
Well, I mean, it sounds like in a day-to-day sense, they have a reasonably normal, happy family life. But in Ukraine, as I understand, they don't have any official recognition of their relationship. They can't marry, they can't form civil partnerships. So they essentially are unrecognized as far as the state is concerned.
Yes, so the thing is that the constitution of Ukraine says that marriage is a union of men and women. So basically that excludes all the gay people from being married, and that's the thing that activists want to fight. So being same-sex couple in Ukraine means that, for example, you don't have a right to share ownership of your common property. You can't inherit stuff if your partner dies. And what is most important, for example, for this couple, it is that they can't have custody over each other's children. That's why they are not risking and promoting themselves as a totally open lesbian couple with children, because they say they have to stay safe for their children.
And what about their children? What is the effect? What could be the effects on them of growing up in a same-sex couple? One half of the couple told you that she doesn't think the children will be subject to anything like bullying or teasing at school. But what do you think? Is that true?
What she told me is that she's a bit afraid of this stuff also, but she thinks that it's gonna be all right, that her child can manage it even if something goes wrong, because they have a very strong support inside the family. Of course, anything could happen. I mean...
What do you think? A child growing up today in Ukraine as a son or daughter of a same-sex couple, what are they likely to face?
From my experience, even gay people who are open about their homosexuality in school, they face bullying. And of course, that could be the reason why their children gonna be bullied as well. It depends on the person and on how you would react to bullying. But of course, it's a huge problem. So Ukraine isn't ready to solve these kind of problems because it didn't solve bigger one, for example, just with legal status of same-sex couples.
And it sounds like for this same-sex couple, there's going to be some challenges ahead, but hopefully they'll also be pioneering new ground. But that's where we'll have to leave it for today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
That was Anna Yakutenko on same-sex couples in Ukraine. And finally, we turn to the Berkut Riot Police. The unit was formally disbanded in 2014 after the Euromaidan revolution, but appears to live on under a new name. Oleg Sukhov has been following the story and he joins me now. Oleg, give us a brief synopsis just to set the scene for us. What is the situation today with the Berkut Riot Police and those who served in its ranks?
So the Berkut Riot Police is now known as the Special Purpose Police. But de facto, it is not different from the previous Berkut police. So in this regard, nothing has changed. So 42% of Berkut's personnel have remained in the new riot police. And its methods are almost the same as those of the Berkut police. For example, its brutal attitude to protesters and its use of pro-government thugs, also known as titushki in Ukrainian. And the most appalling thing is that the so-called police reform, which was carried out last year, did not give any results as far as the Berkut is concerned, because of all the Berkut police officers, less than 1% have been fired as a result of a vetting procedure. So it's just 16 people or less than 1%.
And you write that the brutality of these renamed Berkut now was seen most recently in May at a protest in the city of Dnipro. Tell us what happened there. What were the consequences of those actions?
So there was a protest there. Basically, there were two kind of rival groups there. One group was the supporters of the Victory Day in World War II, May 9th, and the people who were opposed to them were pro-Ukrainian and nationalist activists, former Berkut police in Dnipropetrovsk region, and so-called titushki pro-government thugs cracked down on veterans of the war with Russia in Dnipro, and there was brutal beating. Another episode was when several nationalist activists were brutally beaten at another location in Dnipro on the same day, and the prosecutors are investigating this case, and the so-called titushki are being prosecuted, but not a single police officer has been charged in this case.
Given that we have these former Berkut members who are still part of the law enforcement here in Ukraine, some, as you write, have also fled to Russia. There are a few who are on trial here in Ukraine for murdering or attacking protesters as a result of what happened during Euromaidan. But it does seem like most of them will simply get away with crimes they may have committed and simply carry on. Is that the state of affairs today?
Yeah, one problem is that Ukraine's entire state apparatus seems to be helping them. So, for example, judges are releasing them. As a result, they're managing to flee to Russia. And in many cases, there are no reasonable grounds to release them. The police, the Interior Ministry, they effectively protect those Berkut officers. Either they praise them or they try to bail them out. Like Gerashenko, who is an aide to Interior Ministry, Arsen Avakov, has defended many former Berkut police officers many times. And another interesting incident is that the mayor of Dnipro, Boris Filatov, who was previously portrayed as a nationalist or a patriot, and as Maidan supporter. He appointed a former Berkut police officer involved in crackdowns on Euromaidan protesters as head of his municipal police, which caused a lot of controversy.
Well, Oleg, it sounds like it's not the happiest story for Ukraine at the moment, but for today, that's where we'll have to leave it. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, thank you.
That was Oleg Sukhov on the fate of Ukraine's infamous Berkut Riot police. And on that note, that's where we'll have to wrap it up for today. Many thanks for listening. And remember, if you want to read more about any of the stories we've been discussing today, you can do so at our website, kievpost.com. Until next week, goodbye.